listening to the Digitally Irresistible podcast, where we cover the optimization of digital technologies and irresistible people. Brought to you by iQor. Each episode features someone who sheds a little more light on the ins and outs of delivering a great employee and customer experience that has a measurable impact on the business. And now, here's today's guest. Hey there, welcome to another episode of the Digitally Irresistible podcast. I'm your host, Bernie Borges. Today's guest is Maribel De Leon. Welcome, Maribel.
Thank you, Bernie. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to our conversation because, Maribel, you've got a very extensive background in the BPO industry, most notably in project management, which is the heartbeat of a BPO business. And you have been a project manager yourself in your BPO career. And now, as the senior director of the customer integration team, you lead a team of project managers. So, I want to discuss with you what a new program implementation looks like for a client and the role of a project manager in ensuring the success of our clients, which at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, the success of our clients. So before we do that, as you know, I always like to begin with a brief introduction. Give us a little bit of your backstory and how you got to your current role.
Well, I started working in the BPO space probably like 19 years ago, really focusing in the really offshore space. Eventually, I joined iQor in one of iQor's acquisitions and really then started looking at the BPO experience from a more global perspective, both domestically and offshore and nearshore. Joined really when the iQor team was forming its own project management or customer integration team. So that was really fun for me. And I've been along the ride, in that heartbeat ever since.
Fantastic. Well, you play a big role. You've got a great background for your role leading up the customer integration team. So let's talk about what you call an NPI, a new program, a new client program implementation. What does that look like, Maribel?
Well, a new program implementation, Bernie, as you say, really is the lifeline of the company, right? I mean, I really stress to my project managers that their main focus is to really execute the client's vision. So I always ask my project managers to ask a new client on our first call to explain to the team what is it that they're looking for from this experience or this partnership or this relationship. Maybe they're moving over from another vendor, or maybe they have an in-house center. What is lacking, right? What is it that they're trying to solve? And because we have representation on that call from so many of our other teams, right? Workforce management, training, hiring, you name it. We invite all of those departments to our kickoff call. We all have an understanding right off the bat what it's going to take to make that client successful, and we have a great starting point for that. And the PM really leads that charge. By understanding that from the very beginning, we really tailor the launch to fit that profile.
Okay. Now, a new program can be an existing client that's launching a new program, or it can be a brand new client as well, right? It can be
Yeah,
either one.
absolutely. Absolutely. And the process doesn't really change that much. We really try to keep the project manager involved in the same program that they launch. So for the duration of their relationship with iQor. So there is a relationship building that happens during that process, not only with the client, but also with the program, with the operations team. And there's a familiarity with what tools the program is using, et cetera. So it's a nice way to have that continuity. But the project and the process doesn't really change. We do have kickoff calls. We, as I said, try to understand the scope of the project. We talk about technology that iQor has to offer. The project manager oftentimes does have experience in other areas within the company, so that's a great asset that my team brings to the table. They are not just project managers, but they could have had previous experience in HR or in operations themselves. So there is oftentimes a very consultative approach to projects. Maybe we see a need in during these discussions of a new tool that can be implemented that can be shared to solve a problem or a solution. And that could be discussed with our operations team and, of course, with our clients as well. So, is there an opportunity to utilize a self service IVR, for example, or some kind of other, digital solution? Is there an opportunity to create a new CRM for this application? We have a new client currently that we're building a whole new CRM for. The client is super excited, and we are hard at work documenting and creating use cases. And um, those situations arise where the PM can kind of say, hey, there's a need here and there's an opportunity. And then we bring in additional resources to kind of hash it out and say, do we have a tool? Do we have a solution? And in most cases, we do.
I like what you said a few minutes ago, Mariel, about how at the beginning, the kickoff call, the PM asks the client, "So, what is it that you want to achieve here? What's the end goal here? What's success look like for you?" So, I would think then that a PM really needs to have not just great project management skills, not just great relationship building skills, not just great communication skills, but also great collaboration skills. And I think you've already alluded to that. You want to share maybe an example or two where collaboration with the client has just been something that is worth sharing on this episode?
Yeah, absolutely. We just had a recent launch where we had a client come to us and ask us if we would work with their incumbent and actually project manage a piece of the launch for them. The incumbent had ownership of training and of the CRM, and that needed to be transitioned over to iQor. So they asked us if we would project manage that for them. And so the project manager was not only managing the overall project, but having separate calls with the incumbent vendor as well, and tracking their deliverables and their timelines, and kind of leading them through that process. So I thought that was interesting and really the epitome of collaboration. Right here, we are working with the team that we were replacing, and they were good sports about it, but really, not very often do we get a client say, hey, can you please work with our incumbent, and can you please be their project manager. So that was interesting and it worked out
Yeah.
really nicely.
Yeah, that's a great example. Now, I would imagine that the PMs occasionally run into a client that has a really challenging scenario, something that's maybe a little bit outside the norm. How does your team handle something like that? And maybe you can share an example.
Just this past summer had a situation because of the pandemic. How a client came to us that were in the market space with a response to COVID, really needing support, and really within 72 hours of a handshake, they were a brand new client. So within 72 hours of a handshake, we were able to work with the team to put together 75 agents, and get them on the phones and give this client, the support that they needed very, very quickly. And I love this story because that project has now grown to over 550 agents, and is still growing. So to be very nimble that way, to be very quick, to be able to respond to our clients' needs successfully is really what the project management team really strives for.
That's fantastic. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. So, as the leader of the project managers, how do you approach your job each and every day? Having been a project manager yourself, Maribel, how do you lead your team?
You know what? I remind them every day to keep our clients in mind, right? What are you doing today that's going to lead to our client success? And what are you doing to collaborate with our operations team to help them be successful? Because ultimately, they're the ones that need to deliver on those KPIs and those metrics, right? So, and as I mentioned earlier, right, our team has experience in so many of these other departments, whether it's HR, IT, operations, et cetera. So they know what it takes to be successful. They know what it's like, and they should be partnering with our operations team and the rest of our organizations to deliver on what the client expects from us. And they need to really be the mouthpiece for our clients and really advocate for them whenever possible, to really help drive performance.
Fantastic. Well, Maribel, I can tell that you really enjoy your work. But my last question is, when you're not working, what do you like to do for fun?
When I'm not working, Bernie, I have 2 boys, so I spend a lot of time on the soccer fields and on the basketball courts, but for fun, for me, I like to do a lot I read a lot. I do a lot of reading, and, when I actually, when I was little, I learned how to knit, and during the pandemic, I went back to knitting, believe it or not, which is not doesn't sound super exciting, but it's a great de-stressor, so I've made hats and scarves, and yeah, it's great, super fun.
I can't speak from experience, Maribel, but I can kind of see how knitting would be a distressor. So, yeah,
Yeah. I
cool.
mean, unless you totally mess up, but then you just pull it all out and you start again, so
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. That's great. Well, Maribel, I want to thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule, leading the customer integration team, leading the team of project managers to come here and share your experience, share these insights with us on this episode of the Digitally Irresistible podcast. What you're doing, what your PMs are doing, it's the lifeblood of our business. And I know that not only we at iQor appreciate that, but our clients appreciate that because we're driving their success. So thank you so much for being here today.
thank you, Bernie, super fun. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Digitally Irresistible podcast, where we cover the optimization of digital technologies and irresistible people, delivering a great employee and customer experience that has a measurable impact on the business. Brought to you by iQor. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast player so you don't miss future episodes.